Good morning, colleagues. The legislature in Guam is called to order. Assistant Majority Leader Senator San Augustine, you are recognized.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. I move to waive notwithstanding Section 1.02 Sessions of the Legislature in Guam H1 privileges of the floor. Persons allowed the students of CL Titan Elementary School onto the session floor.
On that motion to waive Section 1.02 H1, notwithstanding the rules, is there any objection? Seeing no objection, motion carries. We will allow the students of CL Titan Elementary School onto the session floor. Welcome to the students of CL Taitano Elementary School to our session floor. We're going to begin with a prayer. Senator San Nicolas, can you lead us in prayer, please? Kindly rise.
Yes, Madam Speaker, thank you very much. Bless the Lord, O my soul. O my soul, worship his holy name. Sing like never before, O my soul, I'll worship your holy name. You're rich in love, and you're slow to anger. Your name is great, and your heart is kind. For all your goodness, I will keep on singing 10,000 reasons for my heart to find. Bless the Lord, O my soul, O my soul. Worship his holy name. Sing like never before, O my soul. I worship your holy name. Heavenly Father, I ask you in these days of session to help us work together for the prosperity, the progress, and the happiness of our people. I ask this in your name. Amen. Thank you, Madam Speaker.
Senator San Nicolas. To express a never-ending and never-forgotten gratitude by the people of Guam, the legislature recognizes recipients of Imaladan Mastakilu na Sakrifisu on a display in the Guam Congress building and during each of its sessions. For the recognition of a recipient of Imaladan Mastakilu na Sakrifisu, Senator Perez, you are recognized.
On behalf of a grateful island and country, we honor Staff Sergeant Pedro Afflecky Cruz and the family of Staff Sergeant Pedro Afflecky Cruz for making the ultimate sacrifice in service and defense of our island and country.
We will now have the reciting of the Inifresi, the singing of the Guam hymn in Chamorro, and the singing of the national anthem by the students of CL Taitano Elementary School. Situos Masi. Situos Masi students will now have the singing of the national anthem. You could help me with the national anthem, Senator Chris Drainus. Situos Masi students. Great job. Have a great day. Thank you, colleagues. We'll now resume with the roll call. Clerks, please call the roll.
Senator Barnett. Senator Blas. Senator Brown. Senator Dueñas. Senator Fisher. Senator Lujan. Vice Speaker Muñoz Barnes. Senator Parkinson. Senator Perez. Senator Canatza. Senator San Augustine. Senator San Nicolas. Senator Shelton. Senator Tidegui. Speaker Terlahi. Madam Speaker, there is a quorum.
Situos Masi clerks, Assistant Majority Leaders, Senator San Augustine, you are recognized.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. I move to approve the legislative journals dated August 7, 2023 and October 11, 2023, subject to corrections.
Is there any objection to approving the legislative journals? Seeing no objection, motion carries. Assistant Majority Leader, you are recognized.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. There are communications and petitions, and I move that they be appended to today's session journal.
On that motion to approve communications and petitions and append them to the journal, is there any objection? Seeing no objection, motion carries. Assistant Majority Leader, you are recognized.
Madam Speaker, there are messages from Imagahagan Guahan, and I move that they be appended to today's session journal.
On the motion that messages from Imagahagan Guahan be appended to the session journal, is there any objection? Seeing no objection, motion carries. Assistant Majority Leader, Senator San Augustine, you are recognized.
Madam Speaker, there are reports of standing committees, and I move that they be appended to today's session journal.
Is there any objection to the motion that reports of standing committees be appended to the journal? Seeing no objection, motion carries. Assistant Majority Leader, you are recognized.
Madam Speaker, there are no reports of select committees.
Thank you. Please proceed.
Madam Speaker, I move that introduce bills number 185-37 LS through 187-37 LS and 188-37 COR through 192-37 COR and resolutions introduced. Resolutions number 219-37 LS through 223-37 LS and 224-37 COR through 227-37 COR be deemed to have been given their first reading.
On the motion on the first reading of bills and resolutions, is there any objection? Seeing no objection, motion carries. We're now in motions. Assistant Majority Leader, you are recognized under motions.
Madam Speaker, I move to excuse senators not present for today's legislative session.
On that motion to excuse senators not present, is there any objection? Senator Brown, is there an objection?
No, Madam Speaker, but to help facilitate, again, when we're asking, I don't have an issue. I'm sure there's challenges all our colleagues are dealing with, but I think it would be good to know publicly as well for the reasons for the absence, so we're not surprised. Thank you.
I did receive a notice this morning from Senator Shelton that she is off island.
Madam Speaker, they're both off island, unless the Vice Speaker has returned.
I also received an off-island notice from the Vice Speaker from October 23 to October 26. On the motion to excuse those not present, is there any objection? Seeing no objection, motion carries. We're still under motions. Is there any other motions? Senator Lujan, you're recognized.
Thank you very much, Madam Speaker, and good morning. Good morning, colleagues. Notwithstanding the House rules, Madam Speaker, because of the urgency and the timeliness of the need to get this resolution passed, notwithstanding the House rules, I'd like to move to place Resolution 223-37 LS on the agenda.
There's a motion notwithstanding the rules to place Resolution 223 on the agenda. Can you read the title, please?
Yes. Relative to standing in solidarity with Jewish communities, supporting the people of Israel, and condemning the horrendous attack and war crimes of Hamas that occurred in October of 2023. Resolution 223-37 LS.
On that motion, is there any objection to place it on the agenda? Senator Brown, you're recognized.
Madam Speaker, I have no objection to the content of the resolution, but again, just to be consistent, I understand this resolution has not even had a public hearing, so I defer to my colleagues if they want to override that, but I just like consistency with regards to the legislative agenda. I understand the timeliness of it, though. Thank you.
There's an objection. All in favor of placing Resolution 223-37 LS on the agenda, notwithstanding the rules, please raise your hand. Motion, wait. 1, 2, 4. Motion carries. Senator Barnett.
We're still in motions. Speaker Terlahi, you're recognized.
Situs Masi, I'd like to make a motion notwithstanding the rules to place Bill number 173-37 COR onto the session agenda. It is titled, An Act to Appropriate $15,828,000 from fiscal year 2023 general fund revenues collected in excess of the adopted levels enumerated in Public Law 36-107 as amended to the Guam Power Authority for a 3-month extension to the Programen Ajuda para Tautauta Energy Credit Program relative to providing customers with $300 credit towards their account. This is the 3-month extension. I'm asking the body, notwithstanding the rules, because as you all know, it expired already, and with the rolling power outages and the continued increases in inflation and cost of living, I believe this is an urgent matter, Mr. Speaker.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. On the motion to place Bill 173-37 COR onto the session agenda, notwithstanding the rules, any objections? Senator Blas?
Before we can discuss that, can you give us time to look at that bill first before we can say anything about it?
Sure, I'll call a short 5-minute recess so we can look at the bill. The 37 Guam Legislature is back from a short recess. I want to thank the clerks for passing out copies of Bill 173-37 COR. And I believe Senator Blas had the floor. Okay. Speaker Terlahi, you're recognized.
Because of the recess, I can restate my motion, or?
Please do, Madam
Yes.
Speaker.
So the motion was to place Bill number 173-37 COR onto the session agenda, notwithstanding the rules. It has not had a public hearing. The committee chair has said he will not have a public hearing on this bill. It is an act to appropriate $15,828,000 from fiscal year 2023 general fund revenues collected in excess of the adopted levels enumerated in Public Law 36-107 as amended to the Guam Power Authority for a 3-month extension to the Programan Atzuda Pari Tautauta Energy Credit Program relative to providing customers with $300 credit toward their account. This is a 3-month extension, unlike the others that were longer, 5 months, 6 months extensions. This is just a 3-month extension. For the same reasons, I'm asking it be considered, notwithstanding the rules, because the same reasons still apply today as when we declared this an emergency months ago, and that was people are still struggling. On top of the global pandemic, they had suffered the war in Ukraine, inflation, which the testimony showed us increased the gas prices, power prices. Typhoon Mawar came, and we have compounded now rolling power outages, and many have told us that they are still suffering. And if you look at the number of people that apply for unemployment, it's very clear, I think, that they could use this help so that they do not have to choose between food and power. And this is, so I'm really asking my colleagues for their consideration, just to put it on the agenda. And I believe if we can get the BBMR in here, that we can confirm the funding source and relieve any of their concerns. And that's exactly what we did with the hospital bill. The funding was not appropriate as introduced, but we were able to do that on the floor with the help of BBMR and DOA and their testimony. So I ask my colleagues for their consideration and to, thank you.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. On the motion to place Bill number 1, Senator Tydegui, you're recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Mr. Chair, as most of us have received already the CRER report, and it explained to us where certain funding is going to be used toward bills that we have passed, especially for the hospital. And it's clear that when BBMR sent us this CRER report, they indicated that the $30 million that we recently passed about a week ago is coming out of FY23, excess revenue. That being said, Mr. Chair, and the concern that I had was the funding source, was during that time in FY21, there was funding that was not expended, and they were showing there's $30 million floating around. So as long as that funding source is changed, because my good chairman of appropriation had a concern on using FY23 money. But now with the change of 21 would give us that opportunity to ask BBMR where the money is that they claimed that's there, very simple. But what's even more alarming is the fact that our people are still hurting out there, big time. It's not over yet. Yeah, many of us here may feel comfortable, but think about those who are not right now, and that's a huge percentage of this island. If anything has worked, Mr. Chair, it has been these credits that have been given to everyone who pays a power bill. Everyone who pays a power bill. That's the one thing that I've been hearing from our constituents, that this has helped their family a great deal. So I appreciate the change of funding source. This is a great concern, and is it an emergency at this point? Some people can say, yes, it is, because I need to feed my children. I need to pay my mortgage. I need to pay my car payment, or they're going to take away my car. Ask them if it's an emergency. I'm pretty sure they'll say yes. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Senator Tydegui. On the motion to place Bill number 173-37 COR onto the agenda, Senator Kanata, you're recognized. Oh, any objections? Hearing none. Oh, there is an objection. All those in favor signify by raising your hand. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. Motion passes.
We're still on motions. Colleagues, Senator St. Nicholas, you are recognized.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. I've been waiting for 12 years, since I was 12 years old to do this. I would like to add my bill onto the agenda, bill number 9-37 COR.
Could you please read the title, Senator?
Yes, ma'am. It's bill number 9-37 COR, introduced by myself, Dwayne T.D. St. Nicholas, Joe S. St. Augustine, Roy A.B. Kanata, Tina Rose Munya Barnes, William Parkinson, Teresa M. Terlahi, Jesse A. Lujan, and Thomas J. Fisher. This is an act to amend section 58109 and 58110 of chapter 58 and adding a new chapter 58B to Title 10, Division 3, Guam Code Annotated, relative to the legalization and regulation of the use of consumer-grade fireworks.
There is a motion notwithstanding the rules to place Bill number 9-37 COR onto the session agenda. Is there an objection? There's an objection. Senator Tydegui?
Madam Speaker, just a point of information that the bill was during Committee of the Whole, was placed on the agenda, but unfortunately it did not make the agenda. It was voted down. This was the fireworks bill, correct? That's right. So that being said, it had its opportunity during the Committee of the Whole, so I am objecting to it. Thank you.
I think you mean Committee of the Rules, Committee on Rules. Yes.
Committee of the Whole. Thank you, Madam Speaker, for that correction. I stand corrected. And yes, I have to object since it did not pass. My colleagues, some of us did not vote for it, and there's no reason why it should go on this agenda when it was voted not to come on the agenda in the first place. Thank you.
On the motion, notwithstanding the rules, to place Bill number 9-37 COR onto the agenda, there's been an objection. All in favor, please raise your hand. Motion carries. We're still on motions. Senator Kanata, you are recognized.
Good morning, colleagues. Good morning, Madam Speaker. Notwithstanding the House rules, I move to place Bill number 9030-37 COR onto the session agenda and act to add the new section. Article Chapter 18, Title 1, Guam Code Annotated relative to mandating electronic reporting. I did hear earlier that we did move to have this on the session agenda on the core meeting, but unfortunately we didn't have enough votes to attain this onto the agenda, and I'm asking my colleagues for their support in this body.
Could you repeat the number, please, the bill number?
Bill number 90-37 COR, and it's on the website.
Is there an objection to placing? There's an objection. So, colleagues, there's a motion to place Bill number 90-37 COR onto the session agenda. There's been an objection. All in favor, please raise your hand. Sorry, Senator, would you mind repeating the title before we count the vote?
An act to add to the Article 3, Chapter 18, Title 1, Guam Code annotated relative to mandating electronic reporting.
Are we ready to vote? There's been an objection. All in favor, please raise your hand on the motion to place on the agenda. 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Motion carries.
Thank you, Madam Speaker, and thank you to my colleagues. Madam Speaker, notwithstanding House rules, again, I move to Bill number 143-37 onto the session agenda, an act to add to a new subsection 96-106 on Chapter 96, Title 10, Guam Code annotated, relative to requiring the availability of automated external defibrillators in all Government of Guam offices by June 30, 2024. And I ask for my colleagues' support. Thank you, Madam Speaker.
There's a motion, notwithstanding the rules, to place Bill number 143-37 COR onto the session agenda. Is there an objection? There's an objection. All in favor of the motion, please raise your hand. 1, 2, 3, 4. Motion fails.
Side short. Okay. Can I move to add Doreen Crisostomo to the voting file, or is it too early?
She's already on the agenda. We'll get to her soon. So we're still under motions, and Senator San Augustine regarding resolutions. Final motion.
Thank you, Madam
Majority
Speaker.
Leader.
I move that all congratulatory, commendatory, and condolence resolution introduced today and for the remainder of this legislative session be considered first read and adopted to allow the Legislative Council to make the technical corrections and to add all senators as co-sponsors.
On that motion, is there any objection? Seeing no objection, motion carries. All right, is there any other motion? If not, we are moving on to legislative concurrences. Senator Kanata, you are recognized.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. I move to place on the voting file from the Committee on Infrastructure, Economic Development, Simon Sanchez High School, Disability Service, Self-Determination, Historic Preservation, Housing, Public Accountability, and the Guam Builder nomination of Doreen T. Crisostomo Muña, PhD, to serve as a member of the Guam Economic Development Authority Board of Directors with the recommendation to do confirm.
On that motion, under legislative concurrence, is there any objection? Seeing no objection, motion carries. Senator Barnett, you are recognized.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. I move to place in the voting file from the Committee on Education, Public Safety, and the Arts the nomination of Margarita Felicitas B. Angel to serve as a member, retired teacher, school administrator of GDOE, representative of the Guam Education Board with the recommendation to do confirm. Thank you, ma'am.
Thank you. On that motion, is there any objection? Seeing no objection, motion carries. We're still in legislative concurrence. Majority Leader, Senator San Augustine, you're recognized.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. I move to place in the voting file from the Committee on Maritime Transportation, Air Transportation, Parks, Tourism, Higher Education, and the Advancement of Women, Youth, and Senior Citizens the nomination of Joanna T. Chun to serve as member of the University of Guam Board of Regents with the recommendation to do confirm.
On that motion, is there any objection? Seeing no objection, motion carries. Senator San Augustine, you are recognized.
Thank you again, Madam Speaker. I move to place in the voting file from the Committee on Maritime Transportation, Air Transportation, Parks, Tourism, Higher Education, and the Advancement of Women, Youth, and Senior Citizens the nomination of Jesse G. Garcia to serve as member of the AB Wampat International Airport Authority Board of Directors with the recommendation to do confirm.
On that motion regarding Jesse G. Garcia, is there any objection? Seeing no objection, motion carries. Senator Barnett, you are recognized.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. I move to place in the voting file from the Committee on Education, Public Safety, and the Arts the nomination of Lulene C. San Augustine to serve as a member, guidance counselor representative of the Guam Commission for Educator Certification with the recommendation to do confirm, ma'am.
On that motion regarding Lulene C. San Augustine, is there any objection? Seeing no objection, motion carries. Senator Barnett, you are recognized.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. I move to place in the voting file from the Committee on Education, Public Safety, and the Arts the nomination of Rosanna D. San Miguel Tiston to serve as a member, general public representative of the Guam Academy Charter Schools Council with the recommendation to do confirm him.
On that motion regarding Rosanna D. San Miguel Tiston, is there any objection? Seeing no objection, motion carries. Majority Leader, Senator San Augustine, you are recognized.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. I move to place in the voting file from the Committee on Health, Land, Justice, and Culture the nomination of Alexander D. Wheelert, MD, to serve as member, physician representative of the Guam Board of Medical Examiners with the recommendation to do confirm.
On that motion, is there any objection? Seeing no objection, motion carries. Senator Barnett, you are recognized.
Thank you again, Madam Speaker. I move to place in the voting file from the Committee on Education, Public Safety, and the Arts the nomination of Orlando C. Zepeda to serve as a member, the visual arts representative of the Guam Council on the Arts and Humanities Agency, or CAHA, Board of Directors, with the recommendation to do confirm him.
On that motion regarding Rolando Cepeda, is there any objection? Seeing no objection, motion carries. I think we've completed our legislative concurrences. Senator Kanata?
Again, earlier we did state that certain items did not make the agenda during core meeting, but just out of good faith and being a good colleague, I would like to, on behalf of Vice Speaker Munya Barnes from the Committee on Human Resources, Academy Revitalization, Regional Affairs, Public Library, Telecommunications, Technology, and Federal and Foreign Affairs, I would like to...
Wait, I'm sorry. Yeah, we need a motion to go back to motions if you're trying to make a motion regarding the agenda.
So can I make a motion to go back to motions?
All right, there's a motion notwithstanding the rules to go back to motion. Is there any objection? Seeing no objection, motion carries. We're now in motion. Senator Kanata, you're recognized.
Just to clarify, there are 3 appointments, just all for the library. Do I have to individually motion them? Okay. So again, on behalf of Vice Speaker Munya Barnes from the Committee on Health, Human Resources, Taganya Revitalization, Regional Affairs, Public Libraries, Telecommunications, Technology, and Federal and Foreign Affairs, I'd like to motion, notwithstanding the House rules, through the reappointment of Monique R.C. Story, Ph.D., to serve as a member of the Guam Public Library System Board of Directors. And I ask for my colleagues' support.
On that motion regarding Monique's Story to the Guam Public Library System, is there any objection? Senator Taitagui?
Thank you, Madam Speaker. I remember when these were these particular individuals who were going to be placed on the session agenda during Committee on Rules. Unfortunately, they didn't have, the committee report was not out at all. So my question right now is there a committee report for these 3 individuals to sit on the library board?
Would the Committee on Rules yield to that question? We'll take a 1-minute recess. We're back from recess. Senator Barnett, Committee on Rules, would you yield to the question?
Yes, ma'am, I would. The committee reports were cleared, and subsequently everything was posted on the Guam Legislature's website on October 17th. And this covers the nominations of Monique Story, Nicole B. Nelson, and Nolan G.T. Flores. Thank you, Madam Speaker.
There's been an objection. Senator Brown, do you have an objection? Okay. So,
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Again, I have no objection to the nominations that are being put before us specifically for the Guam Library. I attended the public hearing, and I think all three of these individuals are going to continue to do outstanding work. What I do have a problem with, Madam Speaker, is these, while we're saying they were put online, your office published an agenda that the people of Guam were able to look at, and I hope have some confidence in of knowing what it is we are going to be discussing in session. We're here every month. We're here every day of the week. There is no reason we cannot meet these timelines. So we have adequate public notice to our people about what issues, what bills are going to be on the floor, what nominations are going to be on the floor. This constant rush, especially because these reports were not ready in time for the rules meeting, don't really allow us that opportunity, and certainly do not allow the public the opportunity. While it may be online, there are a lot of people on Guam that are not online. There are a lot of Manunko that are online. There are a lot of Manunko that are not online. I think our people should have some sense of order, unless it's an absolute emergency, which in some cases are questionable. The things we put on this agenda that are not, don't fall into those categories. I think we need to have some sense of order, and there's no reason why we cannot. There's no reason why we can't come into session and do these things in a timely fashion instead of coming here after we've already had, your office has already published an agenda of what's supposed to be discussed on session, and then keep adding and adding and adding and adding. Unless it's a severe crisis, I don't see why we need to entertain these issues today, since they did not meet that public's notice requirement that you had printed with regards to session. Otherwise, I don't know why we have rules meetings, because that's a waste of time. And I don't know why we spend the time and effort to publish in the paper, as we require every other government of Guam agency, every other board and commission, every mayor in their village to do, and then we ourselves are the biggest rule breakers of the law. So I have reservations about continued additions that are not published in advance notice to our people. Thank you, Madam Speaker.
There's been an objection. The motion is to place the nomination of Monique Story for the Guam Public Library System onto the session agenda, into the into the legislative concurrence. There's an objection, so all in favor, please raise your hand. Motion fails. Senator Kanata, you're recognized.
Busta, never mind. There are only two more. The same thing. It's going to be the same scenario. Busta. Side short.
We're on still on motions. Are there any other motions? If not, we've exhausted legislative concurrence. There are no items under consent calendar. We will proceed with the second reading file. The first bill in our second reading file is Bill number 54-37 COR. Senator Parkinson, you are recognized. This is as amended by the committee.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. I would like to make a motion to add Bill number 54-37 COR as amended by the Committee on Fire, Agriculture, Power, and Energy Utilities, Public Transit, Unemployment Insurance, and Universal Health Care, introduced by myself, William A. Parkinson, and co-sponsored by Senators Joanne Brown and Senator Dwayne Snicklis. An act to amend Article 1 of Chapter 63, Title 5, Guam Code annotated relative to game and fish regulations, protecting our marine preserves, and standardizing penalties for violations of game and fish statutes and the adjudication process thereof. I'd like to motion to put that onto the third reading file and to discuss.
Right. There's a motion to place Bill number 54-37 onto the third reading. Please discuss. Senator Parkinson, you may proceed.
Bill 5437 was based on Bill 322-36, introduced by the late Senator Jose Piro Terlahi in the 36th Guam Legislature. It was the culmination of nearly 2 years of collaboration between Senator Pito, the Department of Agriculture, and the conservation officers in an effort to improve the enforcement of our vital fish and game laws, which are vital to the protection and sustainability of our fisheries and wildlife populations, which in turn are vital to our food security and stewardship of our natural resources. Bill 322-36 was the very last bill that Senator Pito Terlahi held a public hearing for, hearing the bill on December 6, 2022, just over 1 month before he passed away. Senator Joanne Brown was also a co-sponsor of that bill, and I want to thank her and Senator Dwayne St. Nicholas for co-sponsoring this effort in the 37th Guam Legislature. At the heart of this bill is the recognition that sometimes classifying violations of hunting and fishing laws as misdemeanors actually inhibits their effective enforcement. Currently, not wearing an orange vest while hunting is a misdemeanor under law, punishable by up to 1 year in prison. No one has been successfully prosecuted for this crime because common sense tells us that the punishment does not fit the crime. Conservation officers, the subject matter experts in the enforcement of fish and game laws, came to Senator Pito and said that a citation, ticket, and a fine were a more effective and common sense enforcement mechanism to achieve the purposes of these laws. Under existing Guam law, these fines are remitted back to the Department of Agriculture, Conservation Division, in a special fund to pay for training and equipment to further strengthen enforcement. At the same time, conservation officers also told him that the law regarding enforcements of marine preserves and the prevention of illegal commercial overfishing were not strong enough. When illegal commercial fishing in our marine preserves happens, the conservation officers did not have the ability to seize and impound fishing boats, similar to how GPD would impound a vehicle used in the crime. This meant that boats could come back over and over to fish illegally and deplete our fish stock, including the infamous Yamaha fleet, which would bring fishermen from outside of Guam to fish around the clock in a manner that is unsustainable and destructive. This bill would strengthen the teeth in the enforcement of our fishing laws, stopping outsiders from overfishing and depriving the people of Guam natural resources that rightfully belong to them. Senator Pito envisioned this bill to be a comprehensive, and there are various other changes in this bill, including allowing feral chickens to be caught and captured, an issue that mayors have complained about for years. By adding feral chickens to the list of birds which may be captured, mayors can now deal with feral chicken populations as they see fit. Today, I implore you to consider a future where our children and grandchildren can experience the bounty of our oceans and our land. A future where marine life thrives and our fishermen can still make a respectable living without fearing the depletion of our seas. But to ensure this future, our conservation officers must be adequately empowered. By granting our conservation officers the expanded authority to write citations for violations of fish and game laws, among other changes this bill proposes, we strengthen our ability to enforce our already existing laws protecting our fish and game. Just as traffic officers can issue tickets for speeding, our conservation officers should have the right to ticket minor offenses and to seize craft of those who greatly jeopardize our marine life. Moreover, the stakes here are much higher than a mere traffic violation. The sustainability of our marine ecosystem is at risk. In more egregious cases, when we find repeat offenders or those who pose a significant threat to our marine sanctuaries, our officers should be able to seize boats and equipment. This is not just a punitive measure, it is a preventative one. By taking away the tools of the illegal trade, we strike a blow against illicit operations and send a clear message. Our waters are not open for illegal exploitation. Lastly, let's talk about where the revenue from these citations should go. Instead of merely filling state coffers, I propose we channel these fines and fees directly into a fund dedicated to the equipment, training, and resources our conservation officers need. In this way, every time an illegal fisherman is fined, we reinvest in the very system that protects our marine preserves and animals. By granting our conservation officers the power they need and investing in their training and equipment, we not only protect our marine life and terrestrial animals, but also ensure a thriving and sustainable future for all. Let's take this step forward for our island, our environment, and future generations. And I would like to ask my colleagues to please support me and vote for this legislation. Thank you very much. And with that, Madam Speaker, I yield the rest of my time. Thank you.
Thank you, Senator. On the bill, as amended by the committee, is there anyone who would like to speak? Senator Brown, you are recognized.
Thank you very much, Madam Speaker. I definitely rise in support of Bill 5437. As the main sponsor, Senator Parkinson, had elaborated, our late colleague, Senator Pito Terlahi, had originally introduced this bill last term. And yes, indeed, it was his last public hearing that was held in December. Actually, he and I were the only two that were there. Not realizing, certainly while we recognized it was his last public hearing, but not realizing, obviously, that we would be losing our dear colleague in such a short time from him ending his official duties here at the Guam Legislature. Certainly befitting that we continue his legacy and his effort and his work to move this legislation forward. You know, many, many years ago, gosh, I don't even remember, Madam Speaker, it was 25 or 26 years ago when we originally passed and created the marine protected areas around Guam. Obviously a lot of time, a lot of effort, almost 13 years prior, even before my coming into the legislature. A lot of time and effort was put in by the Division of Aquatic and Wildlife, particularly those that headed that division, like Jerry Davis and Rufo Lujan, were all integral in creating the marine protected areas. And certainly I think we've seen all these years later the benefits of our ecosystem, particularly our marine ecosystem, by having these areas put aside. The challenges we've had since then, obviously, you know, maybe in addition to the lack of respect that some have for our environment and our natural resources, but is the ability to effectively enforce and protect these areas. And certainly over the years, because we've not had a system put in place that Bill 54 will create, we've had situations time and time again where, as a result of these violations that occur out in the community, the conservation officers do their enforcement, and unfortunately, and there may be a number of reasons why. One, it may be as minor offense as not wearing the proper equipment, or it might be an extreme offense of illegally hunting, and unfortunately some of that money gets turned into and involved in our drug trade. Unfortunately, as a result also is the inability to have proper enforcement, because while conservation officers are doing their job, the legal system, the Office of the Attorney General historically, and then our court system has not properly addressed these cases. So they get thrown out. And where does that put all that time and effort every time a conservation officer has to go out and arrest an offender? This particular bill will put in place essentially, I guess, like a ticket system, so that when you do have these type of minor violations, these citations can simply be issued and the individual that receives it can go to the court and pay their respective fine. So there is a consequence. There is an immediate action that is expected, and again, it can be dealt with. And yet, at the other end, we want to see those more serious offenses out there that are committed against our environment, that our conservation officers are having to address, be appropriately addressed through the judicial system. These are all crimes against our community. Certainly some may argue, well, it's not as serious as bodily harm to an individual. But ultimately, if we don't protect, we don't conserve, we don't encourage the growth of our environment, the maintenance of our environment, ultimately it will have harm on our bodies. And we want to protect these resources for the future. We have a responsibility, we have an obligation. We can't just simply come into this world and simply destroy and use and consume and not contribute back, not to allow the regeneration of these resources that God has given us. We have an obligation to do that. That's something we want to see, not just for ourselves, but for our children, for their children, for the next generation, who are living in a world that is very challenged with regards to their resources, to their natural resources, their quality of life, to the most basic quality of drinking water worldwide that is going to and continue to be a challenge for all our people. I think it's important to empower our conservation officers. We don't have enough of them. We have less, goodness 6. My last round in the legislature, we had over 21. Now we have barely 6. And those 6 have the limited resources and the overwhelming job of trying to protect all these resources on our island that we require and mandate by law. This is a vehicle that will allow them to assist in their work to facilitate for these smaller violations that are out there, have those issues addressed, and then have them take their time and resource, what limited resources that they have, so they can focus on the bigger issues and the bigger investigations that they need to do and the larger enforcement requirements that we have put on their shoulders here in this community. So certainly in recognition of the efforts of our late colleague, Senator Peter Tulahi, in moving this bill forward, and us being here, for those of us that are fortunate enough to still be here to put in place and pass this bill, I certainly encourage my colleagues to support it. I think it's a very important step that we're taking forward to ensure the judicial process and judicial responsibility here in our community, to ensure that these fines are issued, to ensure that compensation is paid back to our people, and we can expand the limited resources of our conservation officers to be able to do their job effectively. So certainly, Madam Speaker, I wholeheartedly support this bill and hope all my colleagues support this bill and its passage. Thank you.
Thank you, Senator Brown. On the bill as amended by the committee, is there anyone else who'd like to be recognized? Senator Blas, you are recognized.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Madam Speaker, I rise in support of this bill. And I appreciate the author's efforts to be able to clarify, put some clarification in the penalties relative to the offenses enumerated in what is currently law. However, in the spirit of consistency and wanting to make sure that there is no conflict in other provisions of law that exist, I take note of, on page 3, subsection 63109, possession of dynamite, explosive, poisonous, or intoxicating substances. It reads here, Madam Speaker, that it shall be a misdemeanor for any person who is in the water close by the shore where fish can be taken to possess in the absence of satisfactory cause for possession of the same, any dynamite or explosive or any substance which has poisonous or intoxicating effect upon fish. Madam Speaker, in a other provision within the Guam Code annotated, specifically 10 GCA Chapter 61, subsection 61110, it provides that unlawful possession of an explosive is a third-degree felony. So with that, Madam Speaker, I move to amend on line 5, page 3, under subsection 63109, so it be consistent with other areas of statute, that misdemeanor be amended to read third-degree felony.
Is there any objection to taking that motion without it being in writing? Seeing no objection, motion carries. On the motion to amend the word misdemeanor, on page 3, line 5, section 63109, to change the word misdemeanor to third-degree felony. Is there anyone who would like to speak on that motion? Is there anyone who objects to that motion? Seeing no objection, motion carries.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. And with that, I think that everything else was consistent. I appreciate the effort of the author to go ahead and update what is currently statute and to carry on with what had been championed by the late Senator Terlahi, and then to basically, put teeth in it so that we recognize, other than saying it is unlawful, basically provide what the penalties are. And it makes it pretty clear, and also it makes it pretty strong. So with that, again, I stand in support of this legislation, and I ask my colleagues for their support as well. Thank you very much, Madam Chair. Speaker.
Thank you, Senator. On the bill, is there anyone else? Senator San Augustine and then Senator Duenas.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. I just want to bring clarification to the last amendment. When they identified changing the misdemeanor to a felony, that was on page 3, line 5, am I correct?
That's correct, and it's to third-degree felony.
Is it possible that if we take a minute, because there are other parts there that also identify misdemeanor, and if we want to maintain consistency, because further down, it identifies the felony. And if you read the bill, there are other parts that identify misdemeanor, and if it's going to be for consistency, then let's make anything they do in violation be a felony and be done with this. And then maybe we'll just take a short recess that we can introduce that amendment so it just strikes all, or maybe the motion be anything that identifies misdemeanor be reflect felony. A big bird. There you go.
I'll yield to the concern, Madam Speaker.
Would you like the senator to yield, Senator San Augustine?
Please do.
Senator Ross.
With regard to other areas where it is identified as misdemeanors, they are in fact misdemeanors in statute. The concern that I had here was the conflict in identifying this particular section as a misdemeanor, when in fact it is actually 10 GCA chapter 61 that identifies possession of explosives for any reason whatsoever as a third-degree felony.
Madam Speaker, I understand his statement and what's on the code. To begin with, it's notwithstanding anyway, we're going to be changing misdemeanors to felonies. I'm just saying, as you read further down, they identified electronic device to catch fish, possession of electric shock devices. It's identified as a misdemeanor. Understood, Senator Ross is not explosive. I'm just trying to follow the word.
Please, Senator San Augustine, you have the floor.
Yes, just to maintain consistency, Madam Speaker. We want to change, and it's all about this bill. I'm in support of the bill. But if we're going to go down and say, okay, well, let's follow consistency of this law and this, I'll be like, one is explosive, but if you put you want to do shock treatment to fish, you might as well have just exploded it. Then you go down further, and that's all I'm saying. Just to maintain some consistency that any areas that identify misdemeanor be changed to reflect felony. That's all I'm asking.
Is that a motion, Senator?
Yes, ma'am.
All right, there's a motion that all references to misdemeanor be changed to felony. Is there any objection to having that motion done without it being in writing? All right, so on the motion, Senator Perez, Okay, there's an objection to it not being in writing, but Senator Paris, you may speak on the motion. Well, Senator San Augustine, please get it in writing. Yeah. Senator Paris, on the motion.
Yeah, excuse me. Yeah, I just wonder if we can have a recess with legal to talk about the different misdemeanors. Yeah, just probably a brief recess. The part with the artificial light, yeah, I don't know if that's the, yeah, I guess I need a brief recess or request. You know, I do agree that there should be consistency, which means that some of these offenses might be, I feel are stronger than others. Perhaps I can maybe request legal's advice.
All right. All right, we'll take a 5-minute recess. We're back from recess. Senator Perez, you had the floor on the amendment.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. I believe the proffer of the amendment has made some changes, so
All right, so we'll get back to the amendment. And Senator San Augustine?
Yes, Madam Speaker, maybe we don't need the write-up. It's only in the section that covers the choral would be upgraded from misdemeanor to felony. And that's one of the most important one because it's going to take more years than most of us have in life left to recover the choral. Thank you, Madam Speaker.
All right, Senator San Augustine, can we just sorry, the page and number. It's page 3?
Yes, ma'am.
Line 17, instead of misdemeanor, we're going to replace that with felony.
Yes, ma'am.
All right. Okay, so on that amendment, is there anyone who'd like to be recognized on that amendment?
On the amendment, Speaker Terlahi, you're recognized.
Thank you very much. I support the amendment, and I'm glad that the proffer brought this provision out onto the floor because it's one of the ones I wanted to also ask the sponsor. It currently reads, destruction of coral, it shall be a misdemeanor, and the amendment is to say a felony, to willfully destroy coral growth for purposes of flushing fish from their habitat or for clearing an area for net fishing. I'm thinking that if we remove the words for purposes of, we remove an element that would be very hard to prove for these law enforcement or conservation officers. And instead, if they are willfully destroying coral, that should be enough to be classified as the crime. I don't think we need to prove why they are willfully destroying the coral. And I think just in my conversations with these conservation officers, that's always the hardest thing, is to prove why were they carrying the equipment if they don't get caught in the act. But I think destroying the coral, we really should elevate that and prevent its destruction, especially its willful destruction, regardless of purpose. So I support this amendment, and if the sponsor would yield, do the words for purposes of flushing fish, etc., are they really necessary in this regard?
Will the sponsor yield?
Yeah, sure, I'll yield to that. I tend to agree with you, Speaker Terlahi. I believe that that is just some words that will add an extra burden to law enforcement to have to prove, and I'm okay with its removal.
Thank you. So I'll wait until after this amendment, but I very much support the amendment. And the sponsor of the amendment made a great point that the coral growth is unlike anything we have growing around us. It's going to take decades for that to grow. So Sizos Masi to the sponsor.
Thank you. Senator San Augustine?
Mr. Speaker, recommend then we just go ahead and amend it, and let's just change the misdemeanor to felony. And then after the word destroy coral growth, or just coral, and strike the rest of it off, and it'll be done. So I fully support the comments made by the speaker. If you need it in writing, then I can, 1 minute.
Okay, Senator San Augustine, I think procedurally we have to deal with the amendment that we're discussing, and then you can amend it. So we're just going to have a short recess real quick. Thank you.
Okay. Oh, I can withdraw the amendment and just proffer the next one that would just strike it all.
That too. Thank you, Senator. We're back from recess. Senator San Augustine, you're recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I'd like to withdraw my amendment and introduce a new amendment.
On the motion to withdraw the amendment, any objection? Seeing none, motion passes. Senator San Augustine?
Yes, I have an amendment. It's on page 3, section 63113, destruction of coral. It shall be a felony to willfully destroy coral. So it doesn't matter if it's growing or not, it's to destroy it.
Thank you, Senator San Augustine. On the amendment, is there anyone who wishes to speak on the amendment? Senator San Augustine?
I was just asked by my colleagues that submerged coral, I think it needs to say that. Otherwise, somebody that's in business construction may think that it's relating to them. Maybe I just need to add that submerged coral in the ocean coral. I don't know how much more we need to change it when it's not even in the bill, but
We're going to have a 2-minute recess to address this. Thank you. We are back from recess. Senator San Augustine, you're recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. First, to withdraw that amendment and introduce a new amendment that will kind of clean it up.
Okay, so on the motion to withdraw the amendment, any objection? Seeing none, motion passes. Senator San Augustine.
Yes, the amendment reads, on amending page 3 on the section 63113, destruction of coral, it shall be a felony to willfully destroy coral as defined in section 63101D. It's in the statute, the definition of coral. Thank you.
Thank you, Senator San Augustine. On the amendment, is there anyone who wishes to speak on the amendment? Senator Fisher, you are recognized.
Thank you very much, sir. What does 63101D read? I was trying to pull it up real quick. Would the author yield to that question, sir?
Senator San Augustine.
Yes, it's referring to the live or dead, and it's more in reference to it's in the water. It's not something that you find on the back road. Okay.
Right. But do you have 63101D written?
I can read the definition if you like. Okay, Mr. Speaker.
Thank you, Senator San Augustine, for yielding.
Coral, as defined on 5 Guam Code annotated, Chapter 63, any live or dead member or part thereof of the phylum cemetery or that form of these members include but are not limited to all stony corals, fire corals, hydrocorals, soft corals, and relatives, sea fans, black corals, and sea anemones, and other stuff, Senator Fisher. You know, there's...
And other stuff?
It's called coral. It's all really in the water.
Okay, Mr. Chair, thank you very much. That did answer my question.
Thank you.
My concern was just that we don't inadvertently sweep up Hawaiian Rock or Smith Bridge or somebody in this. Thank you.
Noted, Senator Fisher. Thank you. Anyone else on the amendment? Is there anyone else who wishes to speak on the amendment? If there's no one else, Senator San Augustine, would you like to close? No close. Okay. So is there any objection to the amendment? Seeing and hearing none, amendment passes. Senator Duenas, you're recognized.
Sidus Masti, Mr. Speaker, Mr. Chair. Certainly rise in full support of Bill 5437, and I'd like to appreciate the authors for bringing it forward. We all know that Senator Pito was really active in the areas of preserving our culture, our traditions, and most especially food sources for our people. And I'm so glad that this legislation has been carried forward. Mr. Speaker, many times in visiting with my friends and family up north in particular, but also down south, particularly near the preserves and where there are lagoons, which is a traditional fishing spot sometimes for this type of activity for those who would go and try to pillage, the bounty of the sea. And, a lot of frustration has been growing out there. As a matter of fact, there are those who have told me a number of different times they're getting to the point to where they will take things into their own hands. And I've said, let's try to strengthen the law. I appreciate the way you feel, and I understand it. But, if we can do this in a lawful way and get more enforcement, I think that's where, what we need to do is do exactly what this is doing, strengthen the law. My concern going forward and my hope is that we, once this bill passes and gets signed into law, that we immediately convene with those individuals responsible for enforcement to ensure that we can quickly get more enforcement on this issue, because it's very critical at this point. I know individuals who have filmed this type of activity, particularly in the Retidian area. As you know, many families up there spend not just their weekends, but even their whole weekdays down there taking care of their properties and also, fishing also for their families as a food source. And so, this activity is definitely going on in terms of the destruction of our reefs and the methods of fishing that are now, going to be felonies and have very serious repercussions in terms of this type of, non-traditional and illegal type of fishing. In fact, I don't even call it fishing, obviously. That's just, a poor excuse for going and trying to, deplete a food source for simple gratification of monetary gain. It's just completely against any of the sustainable practices and anything that even is associated with fishing. So it's not fishing, it's raping of the sea, basically. And definitely the collateral damage to coral, as has been pointed out by many of our colleagues. I spent a lot of my time in the earlier days in the tourism industry, as a submarine pilot, taking tourists down to see our beautiful coral reefs. Other than being a habitat for the fish, it's also, our corals are so precious in terms of, why people come to Guam as well, other than our locals being able to enjoy, but also many people come to Guam to see our beautiful clean oceans and the coral, and the destruction that happens is just unimaginable when dynamite fishing or coral bleaching or those kind of things happen. It is, something that is devastating and takes years and years, tens of years, hundreds of years. Most coral only grows by 2 or 3 centimeters a year, Mr. Speaker. And so if you imagine that, when you go down and you see even just a coral that's, 10 inches, a foot long, the branch corals and the other corals that you see, you're looking at, hundreds of years of growth, that can just be destroyed in 1 second. So I certainly appreciate this legislation. In closing, Mr. Chair, several years back when I was down in Palau, at a conference dealing with a lot of these issues, I was made aware that in Palau, good Senator Brown mentioned on the issue of conservation officers and how, they've gone so far down in numbers. Of course, we need to build that back up. But the other thing is technology. Down in Palau, they use thermal imaging, and they actually station in a lot of their areas where they know, individuals, even in their own community, may go out and break the law when it comes to taking fish and the like. And they use that heat sensing, monitoring, and and basically it's not only the human body, but the engines on the vessels a lot of times that go out there, and they'll monitor that way. And as soon as they get a hit that, overnight, when the sun's down and they're not normally patrolling their beaches and their areas to kind of make sure they're enforcing the fishing regulations, that alerts them, and they go out and they inspect in terms of what's going on. So I think beyond this, in our homeland, we need to start thinking even bigger when it comes to technology and using technology to protect our reefs, to protect our shores, to protect our natural resources. So it's a great bill, and I know that Senator Pito is probably smiling from heaven right now down on us and thanking us for continuing his legacy of preservation and his legacy of wanting to make sure that our people and their resources are protected for years, generations, and centuries to come. So I look forward to the passage of this bill, Mr. Chairman, and I also pray that the Oversight Chair will convene immediately a roundtable to discuss enforcement and to step up enforcement on this issue. So with that, Mr. Chairman, thank you very much, Sejus Masi, and this is a good bill. Thank you.
Sejus Masi, Senator Duenas. On the main motion, Speaker Terlahi.
Thank you. I rise in support of the bill. It's great to see furtherance of the original measure in that we are clearly, instead of just saying these things are unlawful, this bill very clearly says this will be a misdemeanor and that will be a felony, puts very clear penalties on them. We have heard from these conservation officers how difficult it is to really penalize those who are violating the rules of the preserve, because they have to prove intent, they have to catch them in the act. And so this bill also makes it unlawful even to possess these items, and makes us able to prosecute for possession of electrical devices, explosive devices, poison within the preserves. It also and outside of the preserves. So this bill also affects fishing outside the preserves and just strengthens our current fishing laws. I like the changes that were made to the coral to protect the coral as well. And I am intrigued by this section that says that any person empowered to enforce these rules are going to have the authority now to stop and board any vessel or any motor vehicle or inspect any cooler or container found within a marine preserve. I think that's huge, and I think that they would very much hesitate to do that right now, but I'm hoping one day we can get further than that. I don't know. I'd have to talk to them to see what authority they have, but because we've heard about these fleets of the Yamaha, I guess, boats that one of my colleagues referred to, stationing themselves right outside the preserves. So technically, we hear this from some people in Molesso that they say they think people are fishing at night. And that's why we see some preserve, well, that's their speculation as to why some preserves on Guam are really thriving, such as Ipao, but not all of Tumon is thriving. And not all of the marine preserves are thriving. So any work that we can continue to do to get these marine preserves to thrive and to help the fishermen, because the point of this is to get our fish stock able to grow and able to prosper, thrive, so that our fishermen can actually fish in safe places as well, and be able to bring this fish to continue cultural traditions and our cultural food. And so I'm hoping that I think there's still a lot of more work that we need to do, but I very much welcome these. And I just want to do this so that anyone who's listening can be reminded that it's already a felony to use. Well, they're making it a felony, and it's already, the penalty is going to be not limited anymore. It's going to be not less than $500 without a cap. So it used to be capped at $500 to $5,000. Now the cap's being removed. If you are caught using an electrical device to fish, using dynamite to fish, finning shark fins, ray parts, scuba, those are all a felony, and the punishment, I think it's about to go up, or it's allowed now by this law to go up. Interestingly, the highest penalty looks like a minimum of $25,000 for shark feeding. And again, it reinforces what we already have in statute regarding pelagic drift nets or transferring, exporting fish caught by those nets. Those are felonies. Fines are, you might be imprisoned up to 5 years or fined not more than $100,000 or both. This also categorizes other violations of law to be just that, violations with a fine only, no threat of imprisonment, so that those are much easier to prosecute. This is really, I think, what, in my discussions with some of these conservation officers, what they really want is this ease of prosecution. They can find them. It goes through traffic court according to this. They're going to get a specific fine, and there's no debate. If they get caught with the equipment, they're going to get fined. If they get, if they violate something else, they're going to get fined. And they don't have to, because there's no imprisonment, the thought is for those lesser violations that they're really going to be able to do the enforcement of those, despite their limited numbers. So again, I support this bill. Thank you to the sponsors for the work on this. I know that the Department of Ag still has work to do in regards to this indigenous fishing rights. And we hear sometimes some call for expanded indigenous fishing rights. However, the bill continues to protect those, and so on. I support future amendments to make sure of that as well.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Senator Perez?
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. So I do have an amendment. First of all, I do support the bill. I think it's really critical to update our laws to provide more teeth. And it's really critical to protect what's known as a critical infrastructure, which is our coral reefs. And fish are really interconnected, and they're one of the stewards of our coral reefs because they help maintain the health of our coral reefs. So I think Guam is really blessed. We're one of the few, I guess, we're blessed with an abundance of this resource, the coral reef resource. And as far as diversity goes, I think compared to other places, this is truly a treasure, and we need to work to ensure that we protect this very vital resource. We know a lot of the benefits that come from coral reefs. Provides food, it provides habitat, it provides protection from storms and surges. And so, once it's gone, once it's impaired, then we start to realize the value. But I think what we're doing now is a proactive approach to this, and as well as addressing the problems that we are experiencing today. Having said that, I think that, when we indiscriminately destroy any part of this ecosystem, I think it deserves a higher penalty. And so this amendment that I'd like to proffer is on page 3, line 1 to 3, section 63108. To amend the bill to read, it shall be a felony for any person to take fish by means of any device which operates by shocking with an electric current. So again, this is indiscriminate, unsustainable use of force, and it does violate the sanctity of this ecosystem, and I ask for my colleagues' support.
Thank you, Senator Perez. On the amendment? Is there anyone who would like to speak on the amendment? Is there any objection to the amendment? Seeing none, amendment passes. On the main motion, is there anyone else who wishes to speak on the... Oh, Senator Perez, sorry, you may close.
No closing, but I would like to proffer another amendment, and I believe it's being sent in right now. Just
okay.
a 1 minute recess.
Let's take a short recess.
Back from recess, Senator Perez, you are recognized.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. So this amendment has been sent in. I'm not sure if everybody in my colleagues received it. The amendment would change, I believe, on page 5, and it's on the second line. It's in the section 63129 under penalty. And so I've updated it to include the felony that we changed. So basically housekeeping, where an amendment was passed to make it a felony to destroy corals. So I added that section 63113 as part of this list. But what this amendment would do, it also would increase the fine of not less than $1,000. So I just wanted to throw this out there just because I feel like whatever is deterrent, whatever amount would be a deterrent, because I think that's some of the risks when violators harm our reefs, harm our fish. I think they take it under consideration whether it's, they can make up the money. And I feel like there should be more of a deterrent. I mean, as far as the dollar amount, so I'm open to suggestion as far as this amount goes. But this is the amendment that I would like to proffer. So it would basically say, I'll just read the amendment. Any person violating section 63104, 63105, 63106, 63107, 63108, 63109, 63113, 63114.1, 63114.2, or 63116.3 of this article is guilty of a felony punishable by imprisonment of not more than 5 years or by a fine of not less than $1,000 per violation. I mean, considering that it was taken out, I believe in the bill it was taken out that, or both. So both was initially in the current law, imprisonment and fine could be enforced, but because in the bill it took out both, I felt that the amount should be increased. So I asked for my colleagues' support.
Senator, can we bifurcate those amendments? Do the adding the section number by itself and then the other part separately, please?
So do you want me to withdraw and then just send in 2 amendments?
No, they
just
can
bifurcate
process it all as one, but if you could we'll just vote on them separately.
Okay, so then on that motion, I would like to proffer the amendment that would just add in the new section to be aligned with what we just passed regarding making it a felony to destroy coral reef.
All right,
corals.
so you're adding 63113 to what line?
To line 2.
All right, is there any objection to adding 63113 to line 2? Any objection? Seeing no objection, motion carries.
So the second part of this amendment would be to increase the fine of not less than $1,000, so from $500 to $1,000.
All right, to change the amount from 500 to 1,000 as the minimum penalty. Is there anyone who'd like to speak on that amendment? Is there any objection to that amendment? Any objection? Seeing no objection, motion carries. Senator Perez, on the bill, you're still recognized.
Thank you, Madam Speaker, and I appreciate the sponsor of this bill to carry out the legacy of Senator Pito Terlahi in ensuring that that enforcement can be carried out efficiently, as well as to help protect our vital natural resources. So, Sujus Masi.
Sujus Masi. Is there anyone else on the bill who would like to be recognized on the bill? If not, then the sponsor may close on the bill.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Before I close, I'd like to add an amendment to the bill. On line 27, page 3, I'd like to amend section 5 of the bill to read, activities within marine preserves, all forms of fishing and the taking or altering of aquatic life, living or dead coral, and any resources to include but not limited to mangroves, seagrass, sand, and rocks within a preserve shall be a felony except as specifically permitted by the Director of Agriculture through regulation. Possession of fishing equipment or fish in a marine preserve shall be unlawful except as permitted by the Director of Agriculture through regulations or otherwise permitted by law. Any person empowered by law to enforce this chapter and any rule or regulation adopted by the Department of Agriculture pursuant thereto shall have the authority to stop and board any vessels or any motor vehicles or inspect any cooler or container found within the marine preserve subject to this section for the purpose of inspection or to determine compliance with this section or any such rule or regulation. This change is just to really clarify what we're trying to achieve here. I know the late Senator Pedro Tarlahi, he was really a fighter for making sure that our environment was protected, but also our cultural practices were protected as well. So this language was amended here to make sure that we clarify that we are putting these regulations to prevent bad actors, but we are still putting in the exceptions and the carve-outs, so those who are responsibly practicing traditional cultural ways of fishing are still allowed to do so.
Thank you, Senator. So, colleagues, on the amendment, it's to add the words, except as permitted by the Director of Agriculture through regulations or otherwise permitted by law. Is there anyone who'd like to speak on that amendment? Is there any objection to that amendment? Or Senator Perez, on the amendment? Thank you for waiting, colleagues, for the technical fix. Senator Perez, you may proceed.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. I probably would like to add an amendment or proffer an amendment to the amendment just to make it clear that these regulations have been promulgated through the AAA process. I know it's just to kind of provide that safeguard that these are regulations that have been duly vetted by the public. So perhaps anywhere in this section, so regulations, perhaps unlawful acceptance permitted by the Director of Agriculture through regulations promulgated through the AAA process. So I would probably make an amendment to this amendment after through regulations promulgated through the administrative adjudication law found in Chapter 9, Title 5, Guam Code Annotated.
That is an amendment to the amendment. On the amendment to the amendment, on the amendment to the amendment, would anyone like to speak? If not, is there any objection to the amendment to the amendment? Seeing no objection, motion carries. Senator Perez, anything else on the amendment as amended?
No, I rise in support of this amendment as amended, since it was
All right.
policy.
On the amendment as amended, is there anyone else who'd like to be recognized? If not, then the sponsor can I call for the vote on the amendment as amended? Any objection to the amendment as amended? Seeing no objection, motion carries. Sponsor may continue his closing.
I'd like to thank my colleagues for the debate and the input into this measure. There have been years of work put into this bill, but I have to admit a lot of it was not mine. Most of this credit belongs to the late Senator Pito Terlahi and my fellow co-sponsor, Senator Joanne Brown, as well as the tireless work by the policy people who negotiated to make this legislation come to the floor today. And so I'd like to give all the credit to those folks for putting in the work and not giving up. And even though it took a long time to get here, we got it here, and we are going to pass and continue on Senator Pito Terlahi's legacy of commitment to our environment and our culture. And again, I'd like to thank all my colleagues for the support and input. And I'm just the guy who's getting it across the finish line, but all the work and all the credit belongs to you folks. So with that, I ask my colleagues to please support this bill. And with that, I yield the rest of my time, Madam Speaker.
Thank you, Senator. On the motion to place the bill on third reading, is as amended on the floor and amended by the committee. Is there any objection? Seeing no objection, motion carries. We'll take a recess now until 2 p.m. Recess till 2.